Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We are live. This is the February meeting of the Planning Committee of Buckingham Council. Second February, our planning department Wednesday. Thank you very much. We have no members of the public forum. Any apologies? No apologies. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of any personal or prejudicial interest?
Yeah.
Tonight, apart from Robin.
Yeah, just general on the planning.
And Margaret.
There's a neighbour of mine has a planning application in. I'm just checking the number 7. I'd probably abstain on
Best you
that.
don't vote on. You can talk, but
Thank
not
you.
vote. Yeah, thank you. Right, to receive the minutes the planning committee held on February the 6th. I have a copy here. May we take those as the true record?
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paula. Item 4, Buckingham Neighbourhood Plan, Vale of Aylesbury Plan, Buckinghamshire Local Plan. To receive any update, Sheena is not here tonight, but I can tell you that the working groups that are now meeting monthly, the first one is February the 2nd. We have another 9 between now and December. In fact, the next one is this Thursday here in the chamber, and we're going to split the group into two halves. So one works on planning and development, the other on everything else that economics and culture, arts, etc., etc. And they'll be reporting back. Kath, anything you want to add on that?
What time is the meeting?
10:30. That will be
Early.
10:30 on Thursday.
Yeah.
They're all 10:30 on. They're all Thursdays as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Item 5, North Bucks Parishes Planning Consortium. Councillor Ralph is our representative. Anthony.
Thank you, Chair. I offer my report, which you've already seen because it was Appendix A. Happy to receive any comments.
Karen.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the presentation that is held in Southall Forum. That's not this one, is it? No, it's something else.
No, that's the parishes, town and parishes forum.
Yeah, sorry, getting my frozen in time.
later on the agenda.
Yeah, just to say thank you for giving time to this. And the report that's and the relevant bits to Mays Morton and the consultations and the Spain economy. I think it's a very long report in a sense it's very detailed. I think perhaps this with the feeler and everything else that's in it, I think it's far too detailed to discuss tonight in the sense, but I do think there's a lot of stuff in here which we should be discussing because it will have an impact on the previous item, which is the plan and the water and supply drainage sewage stuff which is in the report, which we've all discussed. I think maybe we should make time for this to come to the next planning meeting if we haven't now, so we can actually discuss it in detail, because I think there's a lot of work gone into this, and I think many of it will influence our local plan.
Well, of course, a lot of it will be going to the working groups.
Yeah.
For the revised neighbourhood plan.
Yeah. But my view is
it's your wish that we.
I wish that we move it to be discussed in length at the next meeting, and we haven't got a clock against us.
Yeah, Anthony, you happy?
Yes, I'm very happy. In fact, to be very candid, I think Pat Hardcastle has done such an excellent job in giving us a brief from the MBPC, which we received at that meeting, that in some ways, anything we can add, and he's asking, is almost tautology, because he's covered the ground so thoroughly. And I'm quite happy to let him know that at the appropriate time, if members are agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you. John? Councillor Hunt?
Yeah, one of the shocking historical facts, of course, was when the HEMA version 4 went to version 5, and suddenly the piece of land that's going to become housing in Mays Morton was suddenly changed to be land suitable for housing. But there was no at all record as to why that change was made, There was no configuration control. That was wrong, unaccountable, undemocratic. So I would propose that we write to the new Shire Council and say, can we be assured now that any changes from one LR to another will be fully documented and fully explained, and we won't ever have that situation ever again.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Could I suggest that that comes up when we discuss
Yeah,
this at the next meeting?
Okay.
If you could,
I think you're right. I think
yeah,
you're
absolutely right, John, but we could do that at the next meeting,
Yeah,
and
sure.
discuss this, we might have other things.
It's still rampant, right?
Yeah,
Anyone, any other comments? Actually, if I could just ask you, following the untimely death of
Yeah, Jeff
the
Cole.
secretary, has a new one been appointed yet?
Not so far, no.
You're not thinking of applying then, Jim?
I know Roy van der Pol, who's the councillor in thank you. I had a vision of the Winslow when I had nothing. This dates me awfully, but anyway, no, I mean, he has put a bit of a plea round, but nevertheless, nobody has responded. Again, I think most people who are active in so many things that something else comes along. You think, oh no, I can't do anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, Roy's doing a good job at the moment. Pat Hardcastle, of course, is chairing.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that report.
Yeah, thanks,
Actually,
Anthony.
then we'll discuss it in full as Robin suggests at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Action reports, you've got the list of action reports in front of you. Robin, if we could go to you first. Cycleway on Railway Walk, you and the town clerk
Yeah.
trying to progress it.
But what I can tell you is that I have had discussions on the cycleway. I can't tell you the details of those discussions, but only to assure you that there is a moderate sort of understanding about that. I can go into more detail at a later stage because I went to a confidential briefing about it, but only say that the concerns that we are thinking about are going to be addressed in the future. Furthermore to that, I am in the process of writing to do with the other elements to do with that, and waiting for a response to do with the connecting duct to the estate. I can't give you the response, I haven't got it, but to show that I am following it up and looking at the time frame of these things, it may be that gravity will have an effect that I can talk more openly about the cycleway in future. But I can assure you that it has been discussed, and only the other day I discussed it again with the cabinet member. But I don't think I can go in any more detail than that for the public, because that isn't in the public.
well, thank you.
I'm sorry, I apologise that I'm being so wicked, but that is where I am.
Town clerk, you concur with that?
Oh, very much so,
Yeah.
and again, we're in negotiations as well, so.
Thank you both of you.
Yeah,
Other actions on the item, action this way, other items of the action list, the local plan facilities survey we completed. And with a letter which Catherine and I drafted to the cabinet member, pointing out why we have exceeded our brief, because we feel much more information is needed for the future development of Buckingham and its facilities. So thank you to Catherine and Sheena for the work they did, and particularly to John Harvey for the input he made. But that's all gone. We find out if you need planning permission form, acknowledge no result yet. We invited Mr. Marsh to a meeting about the A422 bypass roundabout. We have sent a reminder to him. John, did you?
No, that was just me going,
Fine.
one day we'll get him.
So 40-mile-per-hour limit. Repeaters. We have had a reply from Steve Aston. Yeah, quite a lengthy one. Everything's in hand anyway. I noticed most of it now down this end has been done. We're still waiting, I think, for the repeaters. Robin?
Yeah, I'm just going to refer. I spoke to Steve Essen on the phone and by email, and concur what the chairman says about the 40 things. There are some elements that he is, with the development up there, he's chasing down one or two things to do with it, and will be for some time. And this is one of the points that he wanted to repeat. Of course, we would have liked them to have said 30 miles an hour, but they're not. And the other item that you said about Chairman was what was it you said beforehand with the oh well, it's gone now, but don't matter, it will come back to me in a minute. I'm heads full of lots of rubbish at the moment.
Year of the tree, town clerk has been chasing AXA and FU to try and get an insurance rep to the meeting.
I don't think they want to come, there's no benefit in this.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing in it for them.
Just on the year of the tree, just to furthermore on that, and the other thing I have to come straight back to me now. The year of the tree, I think we need to go and pose that we task them to go and look at other authorities, and I said this in perhaps not a public meeting. One of the things you have to do is value the tree. Once you establish the valuement of what the tree's worth, other authorities have a way around this is cutting down trees willy-nilly. If the tree actually has some value, and once you see that a tree is worth economically something, it makes a huge difference in the way that an insurance company can judge against removing a tree. Now, there are some authorities I have realised who do this. I think we need to look in to see whether that is, to see if that's something that if the Buckinghamshire Council isn't going to introduce it, we introduce it as a policy in our local plan. Because if a tree is worth £250,000 to replace, and how can you replace this big sterling oak tree? And they had to replace it with some monetary thing, it becomes more difficult for the insurance company to justify chopping it down. And not other things that they can do to protect the property can come in. So I think I would like to propose that we ask officers to look into that and come back with some advice around whether what I've said is tactically correct or just how I'd like to interpret it.
Thank you, Robin.
So is that something you want to be discussed in the neighbourhood plan meeting?
Well, I think that both. I think that we could either do it in the neighbourhood plan, but to come back with some text round.
Is it a thing?
It's a thing that council's done. So if as I said, as I've read lots of things in my time, and I remember reading this thing, that's a really good idea for us to do, but just to see whether it's something we could do and look at doing in the neighbourhood plan. But to do it, it's got to actually be something tangible, not just suggest it now, go to a plan, and then we can discuss whether it's tangible and what action we'd like to take thereafter.
Okay. So we'll report for the next meeting.
And on the other thing to do with the roundabout, which I forgot, I told you to come back to me, it never ever goes. I think with Mr. Marsh, if I can have the correspondence, I will write to Mr. Marsh and ask him for what you'll find, what the response will be you'll get will be stating it was in the Buckingham transport strategy. And they seem to be using the transport strategy as a verbal address. But of course, they didn't use that when they were doing other things. So I think it's the transport strategy, which I think Catherine was bound to have a copy of it, which I think everyone should read and discuss elements in that, because it also has got the Western Bypass in it. And if they really think that the Western Bypass should be in the transport strategy, well then it suggests it should be done, because it was produced by two officers, which I won't name, who I happen to know, and they put those elements in it, and my memory of the transport strategy was that contributions from developments will contribute to the transport implications of Buckingham. Now, on one, they can't have it on this thing and not on another thing. And when we could just discuss why that is a good portion amount of money, considering it would be hundreds of thousands, if not £500,000 to do that one bend.
I would just say, Robin, the reason we want a meeting with them is because it's illogical. There's not room to put it in. It's actually about the specific item. It's not about the whole transport strategy.
You're absolutely right, Chairman, because when we did remember when those of us who actually experienced the Tesco's roundabout and the roadworks, that when they actually extended the roadworks, the Tesco, they had to actually, by leadway, they had to put a great revetment in the road, concrete revetment on the stream to hold up the road, and that cost a fortune. And that is evidence about it was a necessity to widen the road by leadway, but this is going to be the same sort of portions of money, and I think it makes no financial sense.
Thank you.
But if you want,
We're waiting.
forward it to me, I'll
We
go.
will, thank you very much.
Find out whether we're getting-
Care home access, Cornwall's Meadow.
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Before we move on, what about the roundabout? What I would say is, why don't we do a further opportunity? Why don't I just go down there one day and go like that, at the bottom, and be photographed doing that, and then send that photograph to the paper, they lap it up. And
Yeah.
maybe just put a bit of pressure on this person to go and see it, because we all know the geography of
Oh, that's a jolly good idea.
Let's go along and just, just look, how is this gonna work or something, That's what I would propose, serious proposal.
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to deal with that first, I've got a second point I want to come to.
Really, for you to organise that.
I'll happily organise it if you want to do it, yeah. Yeah, are we on for that, folks?
Yeah, I
All right,
never have enough.
Thank you.
all right, second point about the other tree. I noticed that the National Association of Local Councils has renewed its partnership with BHIB Councils Insurance in a 3-year sponsorship deal running to 2024. And I suggest that we write to BHIB Councils Insurance Company and maybe ask them if they put somebody forward, or if they know somebody who can come along to one of our council meetings. Because they're aiming to have their name all over NAP literature and sponsor their event. Well, let's get a bit of stuff back in response to
Good
that.
idea.
Good idea.
Everyone agree with that?
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony.
You got that old brownie ready?
Care home access, Councillor White asked us to forward everything to him so he could pursue it as a ward councillor. He's not here tonight, so we don't know where he's got with that. And my final thing, Osier Way, section 106 money, we wrote to Steve Bambrick after the last July planning meeting. Letter was sent, the response is still awaiting. Catherine does her regular audit of letters that haven't been answered after 6 months, and so time is right back.
One goes.
John?
Sorry, one more point about the entrance to the care home. We did specifically ask for there to be red paint wherever they can, like there is in other parts of the town.
Yes.
And he specifically not addressed that in his letter.
That's why Warren White is going to take it over. He's going to pursue that vigorously.
Which is just,
Well, will Warren pursue the bit about the red stuff?
Yes, because he
vigorously?
was the one who got the red stuff by.
Outside of school.
Yeah.
Great, okay, good.
Thank you very much. Anyone?
Rod Stewart was a good person to get things done.
Anybody got any other points on the action list? No, we can move on in that case. Thank you very much, everyone. So let's move on to planning applications. The first one is number 2, White House Cottages on the Bletchley Road. This is the entrance to White House Farm, which many of you will notice has been sold according to the signs. This is the building. It's one of a pair. It's a continuation of work that's been going on since 2019. Heritage are very happy with it, and the main thing is that changing PVC back to wood. Must be a good thing.
I propose no objections.
Thank
Agree.
you. If I could just say to, we will follow the form where I propose and Anthony second. Carolyn, any comment?
I think decided have nothing but praise for the work
Yeah.
carried out on this building. And it's such a pleasure to see people replacing UVPC with wood, traditional wood. It
Yeah.
actually has a longer lifespan than critical.
Thank you very much. The second one, number 1, Pateman Close. This is off Brackley Road. It's the demolition of the conservatory and erection of a single-storey rear extension with associated changes to windows and landscaping. As you will see from Catherine's report, all the elevations have been mislabeled. Points of the compass, they got them completely wrong, but it doesn't make any difference. There's no increased flood risk. And looking at the house as a whole, it actually looks like a good thing, a good extension to the house. Keep it in its sort of Edwardian look.
Yeah.
Karen?
We have no comment.
No problem, right? I propose that, no objections. Anthony second that, all in favour? Thank you.
Yeah.
You're right, then. Enjoy your trip.
That's all right, it's still
I thought I'd go this way.
I think it's way better.
The third one on the agenda is 14 to 15 High Street. This is the Windmill Veterinary Centre. They've finally agreed to relocate the 4 air conditioning units. They're going to go in the void at the back of the building between their building and the Grand Junction's granary. The Grand Junction have actually indicated in writing they're happy about it. They're given permission.
Okay.
So if everyone's happy with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No objection, seconded by Anthony, all in favour? Thank you. Item 4 is number 18 London Road. This is just below the back entrance to the schools. Householder application for 2-storey side and rear, part first floor extension, front porch and fenestration alterations. It is actually a very big addition, this development. They do have permitted development rights, but this exceeds them in size, the 10%, which is the normal you can go up to. But everyone seems happy to it. They had a pre-application meeting with the local planning authority. They were asked to reduce the massiveness of it, which they have done, so they've complied with everything. Buckingham Society.
Buckingham Society really had no objections. It is a large plot. Mrs. Cumming had slight objections to the loss of the chimney. Which is not in my backyard.
But they are enclosing it, so it's a bit difficult to retain it if it's going to be on a wall that's going to be demolished.
It's not a false thing on the top. Somehow it looks better from the very visual point of view.
There's still,
As I say, it's a nickety little.
they've got a new
Comment from Mrs. Cumming on
But it is a very large
They've
site.
got the chimney, yeah.
They've got a new chimney.
Yeah, they've got a new chimney.
It is a very large site. They're just simply going to use more of their site.
Quite acceptable.
There's nothing else to add. Might just make the point that the planning statement does call Buckingham the county town. So trying to carry favour with us. If everyone agrees, I propose no objections. Anthony, all those in favour? Thank you. And number 5 on the list is the King's Head. This is an amended plan about signage and lighting schemes. Listed building, of course, they've already had permission to make changes. They now want to change the signage again and slightly re-colour the fascia of the building. I think you've all seen the pictures. My only point is that they're dropping the apostrophe from King's Head. I did actually have a look at local hostelries, such as the King's Head at Ivinghoe, the King's Head in Aylesbury, which none of them have apostrophes, interesting.
Oh.
I tried to get him Ed Grimstow to comment, but he hasn't replied. Fran.
if I remember correctly from my English lessons at school, if you use the block captions, you don't use apostrophes.
Martin.
One thing I'm very pleased about is that they are removing their uplighters. I think we ought to, as a council, disapprove of uplighting because it stops the darkness around Buckingham.
Yeah.
There's too much of that going on.
They're putting in more uplighters.
No, they're not. They're actually removing it, which is great news. I see.
Catherine, you made a point about the lanterns, I think, didn't you? About
Yes, they were going to have lanterns each side of the door and then all these uplighters. And they decided not to do that at all.
Okay.
so what you're basically finishing up with, I don't know if you can see from there.
They would knock them off anyway.
That's the current one. The new one's going to have wood looking, either wood or wood looking boards everywhere, and they've lessened that line around the building, the waistline. It's lighter on the new plan.
I thought they wanted to save money, wouldn't you?
Obviously, the brewery's going to be in for a repaint again. It's only recently been shown. Down in Buckingham Society.
We had no objections.
Right. In that case, and I propose regretting the loss of the apostrophe that we. All those in favour? Thank you very much.
Otherwise, milk it. But otherwise.
Agreed.
Yes, otherwise.
Not a comment on the application.
I thought it just worth
Not a comment on the application. but obviously
No objections with a cost.
Will Fran be giving us grammar lessons?
No.
Yeah.
I think
I'm just saying, if I remember correctly, I may be wrong.
No, you put it in
How about
writing there.
potatoes, Fran? Have you apostrophes?
It depends whether there's something belonging to a potato or whether it's
It's the eyes of the potatoes.
Thank you. Item number 7 is 5 Watchcroft Drive. This is large house on Page Hill. Most of Page Hill has lost its permitted development rights. This one remains, but it is a certificate of lawfulness application. It's a big extension. No notice has to be given to neighbours. And Catherine, you'll see, has questioned in her briefing, is it too big for a certificate of lawfulness? Should it actually be subject of a planning application? Anyone got any thoughts on this? You'll notice that the one we looked at earlier, 18 London Road, they had PDR as well, but the extension was bigger than the 10% permitted, and I'm sure if we looked at the ground, all the plans, this is more than 10% as well. We have history with this. Catherine had raised the subject in a question to
No, it was subsequent to the last meeting.
yeah, there does seem to be some confusion down at Aylesbury what is permitted and what isn't under PDR. And as Catherine made the point to them, you know, it's costing everyone time and money to have these coming before us as certificate of lawfulness. We have to send them back and they have to rethink them. And every time we've done it, they've come back and said, you're right, it needs an application. So I would propose, if no one's got any comments, that we do the same with this.
Yeah, great.
We oppose it.
Yeah.
Or is that the right word? Do we oppose it, or do we ask for it to be clarified before we?
Yes.
Clarify the
I think we're
application.
to disregard our comments anyway, because
Yeah.
they haven't asked for.
So I propose that's what we do. Anthony?
To oppose it.
Well,
Yes.
not unless they oppose it, but just to say we can't consider it until
And defer for further.
defer for further information.
Yeah.
That's my proposal.
Yeah.
Second, all those in favour? Thank you, everybody. The next one, item 8, 4 Edging Lane, again, a certificate of lawfulness. This is on Lace Hill. Catherine has pointed out condition 9 on the Lace Hill planning permission was it forbids any development, including windows, walls, etc., fronting onto the highway without the local planning authority giving it consideration as a planning application. So we believe because of that condition, this has to be an application.
Absolutely.
So the same applies. We want it to be deferred until they establish.
Absolutely.
Yes, I would also point out that the new windows, as opposed to the skylights, do not match the existing ones. They're big plain panes where you've got these little multi-panes on the downstairs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Terrible.
So we'll add that in as well. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Number 9 is 12 Brackley Road. This is quite an unusual one. It's retrospective about the construction of a landing deck to the edge of the riverbank, which was done 13 years ago in 2010. It was a bylaw contravention at that time, but the Environment Agency took no action. It's just now come back really to regularise that and the use of the land as a garden. There are 11 letters of support, which strangely enough are all have the same wording.
Well, are you
I
insinuating?
mean, all really doing is just regularising the situation. So presumably, any time in the future they want to sell, they don't have a problem with it. So I propose that we agree to that.
And bizarrely, they have sent out a response sheet for that.
Yeah.
So they're not consistent at their end even.
Yeah.
Even though we can't comment as we go into it. Yes, thank you. Thank you. All in
They've
favour?
asked us for comments, so we can certainly comment on that.
Yeah, we will.
Sorry, that was everyone.
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 Thank
I'll be
you.
very sorry.
Put the flag down. Thank you. That ends the planning applications, planning decisions. You'll notice amongst the refusals is the conversion of a retail unit to a community hub at 1 Candleford Court. The reason for refusing it is there is no planning statement or marketing strategy or evidence, and economic development at Aylesbury regretted the loss of an employment. We had actually deferred the decision because there was not enough information. Who was it going to be used? There were two different plans given, blah, blah, blah. So that has been refused. Approved 7 Stowe Avenue. This is a rear dormer and extension, flat roof to garage, replacing lean-to roof. We objected to it because of the streets. Interestingly, the local planning authority said, although they noted our street scene comments, they could not be taken into account for determination as this was a CPL. So they approved it. So you win some, we lose some.
Yeah.
Planning Inspectorate, while we're on the planning decisions, appeals, 3 appeals. The appeal against refusal of planning permission to signage at 4041 Nelson Street is cost cutter. The inspector made a split decision. So the advertising, which is below the windows, which we most objected to, has been refused, and damage to the structure will have to be made good. Enforcement apparently will be looking at that.
Good.
Appeal against refusal of 32 Nelson Street, internal works and external render and paint work together with flood prevention. We have no objection to it, subject to the historic building officer satisfaction. Aylesbury refused it. It went to appeal, and the inspector came back to say that the right one. Yeah, he said the flood defences were acceptable because they're in the interest of the public of a listed building. Repair and repainting of the render would benefit the building. And he allowed it with certain conditions thrown in. One of those conditions, the council wanted removal or alteration of the building's timber frame. Helen pointed out it is not a timber framed building. Although exposed timbers in the attic will have conditions attached, the council approves any further work. So that is in a way, it's a good result because it's going to preserve this very important building in Nelson Street.
It's the one that faces up Tintoret Road, and the flooding on that corner is just.
Carolyn?
No, I was just musing on the reasons the inspector gave.
Yeah. And finally, there's an appeal that's been lodged by the owner of 1 Ida Close, which is up in Treefields, erection of a fence, which he put alongside the wall. And he has made a little 11-page statement of case, much of it attacking both us and the local planning authority, but at times he seems to have confused the two of us, and he thinks that we've got the powers to give planning permission or not. He makes the statement, and I'm sure this will interest Councillor Harvey, that all the other walls and fences in the local area are 2.4 to 3 metres high. So 10 feet fences, he's saying, all around Treefields. I thought he might. He's made this a big point, you know, but he's saying mine's actually smaller than most of them, at 2.4 metres.
He actually replaced the wall.
Yeah, so it's replaced the walls right with the fence. Yeah.
Taking over land that was public land.
Well, he claims it's his land, but
On the
that,
other hand, he's also claimed that you have to take the shrubs out because they were all done up with pine trees, and I'm thinking that it's your land, why didn't you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was quite pretty anyway. Lovely white flowers. What are you talking about?
the main thrust of his appeal is going to be that nobody from Buckinghamshire Council contacted me regarding the application to discuss any issues that need resolving, and he was told to be advised on the decision prior to it being determined, which is not how it works. The letter from the Inspectorate for Planning and Growth actually said they would contact him if there were any issues that need resolving. Please note this would only be where issues are minor. They also said, however, if you engage with us through the pre-application procedure, we would contact you. to advise you on the planning position. Well, this was a retrospective application, so there was no pre-planning consultation. So, what we need to do tonight, we need to decide if we want to add anything further to the appeal, which will obviously be heard in writing by an inspector. Chatham would like to make some points about his complaints about the timing and dates, because all this happened during the period of mourning after the death of Her Majesty the Queen.
Yeah, I mean, we would have looked at it on the 19th, which was the response date. So when I got it in August, I went straight down to say, please can I have an extension of time, because there's no way you're getting the answer on the same night of the meeting. So I got an extension of time, but only to the Friday. Well, as it happened, because of the period of the morning, we didn't actually have the meeting on Friday. So I sent again saying, these and these will be over time. Can we have extension? And we weren't granted an extension for that, but the officer did wait. Because I filed on the Monday, which was the first day I put after the Friday. And she didn't decide it till the Tuesday, which was actually her deadline date. And he's complaining that she didn't phone me until 7:15 at night. And we could not have held that meeting. But he says that he's saying that, well, she could have we had our meeting, she had our answer, and therefore she could have decided. And he's just wrong.
Well, but shall we go back and correct any?
I can go and correct that to the inspector. It's not actually making anything on the actual planning matter, but just as a matter of accuracy.
Yeah, that needs to be.
Members' agreement, if we can do that.
Yeah.
We'll leave that to Catherine to.
Yeah,
to work
please.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're getting on really well, actually. It's 9 o'clock. So Buckinghamshire Council Matters, to receive news of Buckinghamshire Council new documents and other information from Buckinghamshire Council members present. Around the table.
A bit on the ground. I apologise for those not here. Just to make just to note the question which you've got in here, because it's been a long night. Note the question you've got here about neighbourhood plans. I think that's information that will be useful to the plan. I've also been to several meetings about growth and infrastructure, about affordable housings and their strategy going forward. Now they're going to look at that. I've also been to public record about the how they deal with damp in buildings, because you're well aware that we've got problems with buildings in the town with damp and people living in damp buildings. I'm not saying I'm 100% happy with the response, but it is what it is, because I was unclear who was legally responsible, and after being answered, I'm still unclear who's legally responsible. I think it depends upon whether the council pursues these things or doesn't pursue these things under a criteria. But if you're a person who's got damp in your house and small children, it really doesn't help. You will be aware that the council set aside another £5 million in its budget for potholes. So £5 million divided by 147 councillors. I don't know, somebody who's good at maths, that will probably work out to about 3 potholes each. So that's a great step forward. But apart from that, you will know the precept was agreed and you will know everything else. I am, as stated earlier, to repeat those things, following those matters that I said earlier, I will pick up the matter to do with the officer not responding on the island. I am currently, as you asked me to call in the application to committee, I've been corresponding since last meeting, and I had a response to this morning to say that my concerns around the application, this being that it should go to committee, not the application, that, the one on the A413, the one which is on the industrial land, which you all discussed at your previous meeting, and you then said you wrote to all the Buckinghamshire councillors asking us to call it in. Well, I have called it to committee. I'm waiting to see when they're going to meet me and talk to me about the application and how do I put it? The email back to me was, will you call in, stand dependent on the recommendation, because I wrote back and said, depending on, I don't know what the recommendation is, I can't really answer that question. But you know, this was a big thing that was in the Buckingham Neighbourhood Plan, and you wanted councillors to call it in. I don't know whether anybody else took up the offer to call it in, but it is one of the things that will define Buckingham going forward if it was agreed or not agreed. So it is important enough, in my opinion, to be discussed in the committee, which then allows the residents of Buckingham who may have concerns about it to speak, because I think 45% of the local planning committees have taken place, and they seem to disappear off the website as not actually. They're there until they don't happen, and then when they don't happen, they don't stay on the website. So like they wasn't really being called at all. So which is quite worrying. I can't get to the bottom of that. I have had a response on it, but it wasn't what I call satisfactory, like most things. But I think that's probably enough. I can assure you that that won't be the only thing I'm looking in, apart from the fact that people I work with have gained new councillors, so there's a proportionality review going out, and we'll probably get more committees, which probably means I'll be somewhere else as well. But that's to be decided, but that's enough, I think.
Thank you very much, Robin. Any questions for Robin?
No, just thank you for your continued work.
I rather enjoy it.
It's the talking or the meetings.
Well, actually, that's all part of it, being able to talk, isn't it? If you can't talk, you can't. I only wish, I want to make any comment, I only wish more people would talk in meetings that I go to in Buckinghamshire. Seems to be the same half a dozen people who talk all the while. Although I would ask us, as Buckinghamshire Council, could we just do a kindness and write to the leader of the council and wish him well, because he took here with during the full Buckinghamshire Council meeting, and I didn't want to bring it up, and got a space to bring it up in the previous meeting. Would it be agreeable that we write to Mr. Tetton, wish him well, and hope that he's actually well?
No, of course, I'm sure members of the should that come from planning committee?
Well, I think we can just ask the clerk to do it as a nicety for the council. So we understand you took ill the meeting. We wish you well. That's all we need to do. I think it's good manners to. I mean, I don't know why and what. It's none of my business. But he left the meeting, and that's unlike him.
Obviously, this committee can't speak on behalf of the council, but I think it's a matter of politeness and etiquette. If I have a chat with Margaret.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that it shows that we're adult and we're not.
Thank you.
You know, he's the leader of the council. He doesn't make all the decisions. I don't think, anyway.
Thank you very much, Robin. Under council matters, we do have the slides from the quarterly town and parish forum meeting. They are online. If you click on the link in the agenda.
And the questions and answers.
Yeah.
They didn't answer.
Right. So I've got a couple of points to make on this. We had some written questions, and we were not. I was not happy about the meeting at all. It was supposed to be for 2 hours. They axed it after an hour before they'd answered written questions, which we were told were going to be answered at the meeting. They just said, "Oh, they'll be answered afterwards in writing." So the 43, I think it was, representatives from towns and parishes around Buckinghamshire who attended the online meeting didn't get a chance to hear the questions, so they know what's going on elsewhere in the county. I personally felt it wasn't a forum; it was a briefing by planning officers and planning and enforcement officers, and it wasn't really much more than that. There was an opportunity to do an online question, but for some reason, for some of us, that link wasn't working, probably because there were so many people. It was being run on Zoom. We did get, yes, just trying to find our questions.
They're in there.
Oh, they're in there, yes. Yeah. Oh, here we are. Yeah, thank you. Yes, so the main question we asked, we have an update. Could we have an update on the current policy of removal of public comments from the planning portal once an application has been determined? And we pointed out that along with other North Bucks parishes, it's causing problems with application. has to be reopened either because it's amended, appealed, or called in by the Secretary of State, or goes to judicial review, all of which we've had recently at this end of the county. They came back, said legislation requires that such information be published only if absolutely necessary, and then only for a minimum of time. Once a decision's been reached, only the information required to be retained as part of the planning register would remain online. They're quoting the 2018 General Data Protection Regulation again. And they said this information is removed differently by the various legacy versions of the public access in use. We are, however, working towards a single back office planning system served by a single version of public access. So basically they're saying the costs associated with indefinite retention of such data are prohibited. Yeah. And my other question was that we've noticed an increase in ACL and CPL applications being refused and followed. This is the one that I raised on behalf of Catherine. Immediately by a full planning application. This is often because PDR has been removed from an area. It may be linked to the new Find Out If You Need Planning Permission page on the website. Too early to determine a causal link. Would it be possible to remove the link? They have come back and said that in an ideal world, everything should be harmonised, but there are more application certificates are being submitted and more being identified as requiring full planning permission. They haven't yet been filtered out through our discretionary service. In an ideal world, we have a data set of all occasions when PDR has been removed and we can look up an address, but we don't have that data. And it has to be manually checked. And obviously they're missing it from time to time. So. Thank you, Catherine.
Not beyond the wit of man to program it in.
I think it's all in the state of flux at the moment.
Yeah.
Sorry, Carolyn first.
Yes, I just wanted to point out the question that Stukely asked, which was really about amended plans and the lack of opportunity to comment on them. And I was horrified by the very complacent reply, some of which I wrote down. They're not aware that it has raised issues or concerns. Well, it's absolute nonsense. We're always raising issues and concerns about amended plans that then do not have any scrutiny whatsoever. Some of them quite major, and it's clear that developers take advantage of that. And I think that is a point that should be brought up at the North Bucks Parishes Forum, hopefully it is a forum, as a point that we all suffer from and must be addressed.
Planning creepage.
Yeah, it is. It is abused, that particular element.
Yeah. Robin?
I'm worried when they make a statement that there's an increased cost. Keeping stuff in the cloud doesn't cost anything. It's the loading it up that costs money and the taking it down. So the increased cost could be taking it down out of the cloud because it remains there. And GPR seems to be one of these popular statements around anything that you get to. It's like for months it was COVID, now it's GPR. Tomorrow it will be bad weather is causing shortage of tomatoes.
Leaves on the line.
And leaves on the line. We have these, and wrong kind of snow. We've had all these statements, and I do worry, and I'm worried that we had a meeting which the parishes we attended, and that our representatives were unable to partake in the meeting. And there's a chat line on Zoom which you go to the end, and if you've been used to it, I tend to have two iPads open and one on mute. And when I make comments on Zoom, I can talk to it, because with dyslexia, if I write in there, it's probably not that good an idea. So I tend to talk to it and put it in, and you have to get yourself, if you've only got one and you've got to go to the screen and then tap it in, and the meeting then disappears while you're tapping it in. It's actually not that easy and not that reactive for people to partake about it. You have to find ways around it. I think that we should write to them and ask them, did they have any feedback on the meeting? Was the general feeling, how many people actually got to partake in the meeting, and will they be doing an additional meeting in person? I think that's the sort of meeting in the office but which would have been much better to been held in the Oculus, when people who aren't used to doing online meetings can actually come prepared with prepared text and speak. And it's only a matter of chairing a meeting properly to make sure that you allow people to speak and say that everyone will have 2 minutes or whatever you're going to do. So I think that we should write to them and say, if you repeat this thing, can it be a in-person meeting in the Oculus, because it's clearly not working.
Yeah.
And I don't like people having to, because you give up your time and then you come away dissatisfied, and you won't be the only person dissatisfied, and then people will not then engage the next time because they don't see any point in being engaged because they weren't listened to the first time.
This forum was facilitated by the BMK ALC, and I wrote to Mel afterwards, and I told her our concerns as the planning committee, because I brought this to the last committee member, and she is going to raise it with
Yeah, I mean,
Brilliant.
not good.
Well done.
Not good enough.
Thank you.
with the powers that be. So hopefully the next quarterly forum will be a different animal. Hopefully it'll run the full.
I'd like to propose that we ask that they do it an in-person meeting.
Yeah.
COVID,
Face-to-face
meeting.
meeting.
With COVID, we're told that if councillors can have a meeting of 147 councillors in the Oculus, I'm sure it's safe enough for the public to meet, and in the Oculus, and one representative from 147 parishes would equate to a pretty similar amount, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, it's at 40.
And if they need a suggestion, how to chair the meeting, they could say all questions in writing in advance. In which case, then you can manage the meeting adequately. Most people, the people involved will be able to do that. They cannot use this technology. I also sometimes, when I'm feeling particularly remote or whatever, I sometimes actually fill in the questionnaire in Welsh. I often think I've got to get these languages going, but that's just what I do.
Are you proposing that?
I'm proposing that. Not that we fill the questionnaire in Welsh. But...
Thank you, Fran, you seconded it. Yeah, that we can ask that these meetings be held face to face in the future. Thank you. All those in favour? It's unanimous, including Robin.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Yes, please, Margaret.
Regarding Zoom, if we hadn't had the pandemic, Zoom would never have happened.
No.
So I do think there's a general principle there. Zoom was very good for a period of pandemic, and I know the COVID hasn't gone away, but I think the time has come when really the presumption should be that the meetings are as they were before the pandemic. Yeah. And there would never, correct me if I'm wrong, there would never have been a question of doing it virtually.
No, there never would have been. They would have called a meeting at a time, a live building with invites.
Yeah.
You would have went. And you may not have got to speak, but you would have been part of the meeting. And the trouble with this is that it's rather like the community board meets online. I don't find it very satisfactory. It's basically listening to councillors talk at each other that they can do at another meeting. We all do it, me and all, and which it turns into a meeting for people to listen to councillors talk to each other.
It's a different kind of meeting.
Yeah, but I mean, but you need a face to face, and it's about time that we got back to it, because it's not inclusive. And if anyone's got a visual impairment or hearing, it's disability. It creates Disability Act, isn't it?
Thank you, John.
I think it's simple, sir. Is the presumption should be that it's face to face, but allow people to file in remotely if they wish.
Yeah.
I mean, and recognise that if they do that, it may be more difficult than like it was rather earlier on this evening. But it would work for you as part of the routine and voted at various points, and that was fine. So I think we should definitely write and say more face-to-face meetings, but with facility for people to dial in if they wish.
Thank you very much. The third item under that Council Matters to receive a response to a follow-up question about the new site advertising system. We were told by Chrissy Uri that she was that they're rejigging everything, and the majority of the advertising now is going to be in local newspapers and less site notices. That's a departure from what they've normally done in the past. they said that site notices will be hand delivered, will be delivered to neighbours, but by second class post. And it'd be immediate neighbours, those whose property found the actual site. Further notification beyond this will be at the case officer's discretion. It's going back to the adverts in local papers. Catherine kindly raised this the with Chrissy, and what size of print, expiry dates.
How many people actually look at the planning notices in the back of the advertiser?
Who buys it anymore?
I know.
That's a bigger question.
I mean, this is a statutory requirement for certain planning applications,
Yeah.
in buildings, rights of way,
Yeah,
that kind of thing, in the conservation area.
yeah,
If you go to the back of, you will require a very strong magnifying glass to read it, and it doesn't give you an expiry date for comments, which is important.
yeah,
There's no point if you're picking up the advertiser in the denting for something and finding that you've wanting to comment,
Too
and
late.
you find that you're too late. There are many replies.
ridiculous.
And then the other point she came back with, just so we know in the future, is they have a planning portal that we can have a look at.
I think I sent to the chair and deputy chair that you should always start the meeting morning by being taught how to suck eggs. There was very little on two sides that we hadn't actually worked in the meeting.
So what would members wish to do about this? John, if we start with you.
Well, I'm a little bit confused because I thought silence meant the things that we put up on lampposts. Does it not mean that? Does it mean a letter to neighbours?
Well, that's what they do in the south of the county.
That's what they mean by a site notice.
Well, it is notice of, an application having been made.
They won't put them on lampposts unless it's a major development.
But it doesn't even say that in the under arrangement amendment here. I mean, it doesn't, I'm sorry, but this is just not clear how they responded, because they haven't defined what a site notice is. And if I read this, I think site notice, well, that means this is going to go on the site, that everyone can see it.
Yeah.
So if they mean something else by that, they should declare it and say it. And also, it doesn't say anywhere at all, as far as I can see, yellow notices. With regards to the adverts and other papers, well, if they're required to do that by legislation, clearly they've got to go on. But it wouldn't it make so much more sense that they have a portal where they put it on social media, and then there could be links that people could click on, and see it, and on the deadline dates, as Catherine just said. I mean, they're forcing on people 20th century technology when we've got 21st century facilities. It's just ludicrous to exclude people. And it comes back to the point I make again, Buckinghamshire Council has become the planning officer led authority, and they're doing what they want, and they don't really care about democracy, accountability or transparency. And I think it's appalling.
Martin?
Well, John's taken the words right out of my mouth, really, because when I read this, I thought, well, what's the problem? Because it says site notice, a notice at the site. So, yeah, it's nonsense then. They can write what they like and we can read what we think we mean, but then they say it means something else. So,
Sending letters is enormously expensive.
yeah.
68p postage plus the printing. Robin?
One of the things I will understand in this, in the sense that as a local Buckinghamshire Council member, you would automatically get an email of a forthcoming application and process. So that in itself, that action is an action that they have to do because they've got to do it because you've got to be notified.
Yeah.
Which means you get lots of things that you slightest understanding of because it's not in your electoral ward, but it's in your area to do with the planning committee, which you don't meet with. The one that you don't meet with. So that reassures you that you have still got a planning committee, theoretically. So I can't understand, it's all whispers, isn't it? The practice, I don't go along with the officer-led argument 100% because simple fact is, at the moment, you've got a clique of councillors, those being the chairs of the planning committees and the deputy chairs of the planning committees, who meet to discuss whether with officers, whether something goes to committee. So of course, at that point, they argue that they don't veto it, and then they write in one thing, and another, because I've got two different responses around that. So one of them's got to be true, isn't it? So I think that the problem is when you put power in the hands of an individual, who may empathise with the policy of saving money for the council, and it's cheaper to do that, you lose democracy, because the individual may think, well, it's okay because I'm involved. So what could possibly be wrong? Because I can make the decision whether this goes to committee or doesn't go to committee. I can influence that because it's given me the power. That must be democracy at work then, because I'm involved. So I think the councillors are partly responsible for this. I think it's not just us, it's the South Bucks that have this problem as well. I think we need to ask the questions like, do you write to ward members to advise them about stuff? And if you do, what is the cost of that? And if the cost of that is X, well, clearly they should be doing some other form of communications. They want to move into the model. Maybe it isn't fake, but maybe it's a page they set up purposely about forthcoming applications that you can look at. Because going into their website isn't that simple. You've got to load it up, and if you get a big document, I understand, you can get timed out. So it's not really reacted to the public getting involved. So I think there should be something about an open site where all this stuff sits on, because in the end, it's about democracy. And if you don't get to comment on it, but then you find that somebody down the line has decided that that wasn't serious enough. I have written the game on this about people deciding that call-ins aren't serious enough. So I think that there's a risk there. The risk there with the constitution, the council allows them to do it. That's why I say it's not 100% the officer's fault. Councillors are steering this, and it's a financial steerance. They save money, and that's why we got.
Carolyn and then John.
We anticipated the size of the meeting that this would be a topic of some debate. With Anthony's help, we made a suggestion, perhaps to Steve Bambrick as head of planning, is that the owners should perhaps be on the applicant to put up a notice on their site. And I remember that has been discussed around this table some time before.
Definitely.
And it would be very simple. So the officer can send them the notice with their validation, and they then have to put it up. And that way everyone will get to see it.
Yes, may I put into the meeting the possibility that if the officer puts the site notice up, at least they visited the site.
Could be reported on the bicycle. John?
Yeah, just to reaffirm what Karen said, I mean, that for me is an obvious solution. And if the person doesn't do it, then their application is immediately refused. And they'll have people like us and Catherine to kind of keep an eye on them and so on. I mean, that's the most straightforward thing. When I come back, just reaffirm the point. They should open site notice, public right of way, site notice. Are they going to write to the nearby farmers or tell them, but the actual rounders want to use the site park? They're going to have no idea that the blocks are being relegated. It's a ludicrous thing if they've been site notices writing to people who are neighbouring. It's got to mean something that you can see on the style or the kissing game and so on. It's public right of way. I don't know what they mean by this.
Thank you, Fran.
I was just going to say that I believe that licensing applications, various variations, etc., like premises licenses and whatever, get sent out to the applicant to be posted inside the premises. So that's.
There we go.
So thank you, everyone. How would you like to deal with this? Back to Robin, not to make a proposal.
I think we should write them and ask them, can you define where within the constitution of Buckinghamshire Council it defines that this is a process that you wish to continue, as the Buckinghamshire Council constitution is quite new. And I'll get exercising for some hours to go and actually look at where it is, because if it isn't within the constitution of the council, and it hasn't been agreed with the constitution of the council, this is how they were going to do it when they set up the council, they should be doing it. And they have to then go and amend the constitution. So I think that's where the only way we can really be is the constitution of the council, the rules that a group of gentlemen met in a room and did. I was on overview and scrutiny of the shadow authority, and we never got to look at the constitution.
Yeah.
I'd like to do. But I think we asked them where in the constitution it gives them the influence to do this, and asked them to point us to the paragraphs to the changes thereafter. And if they haven't done it, and the constitution says they can't do it at the council, they shouldn't be doing it.
Right. Just to point out, this is due to start in April.
Yeah.
Apparently, so we have a luxury of a month or so.
But I think the constitution is your best argument.
Everyone happy with that?
Good idea, yeah.
Yeah, Catherine, draft a suitable letter, Martin.
But also add on site notice.
Yeah.
Because our interpretation of what they are writing, and almost historically, the wording of site notice means a yellow
Notice
thing.
on the site.
A notice. Apostrophe wherever you want.
Also, furthermore to that constitution, because when the council was set up, in their bid to be a unitary council, it made some objective statements about planning and the fact that it was going to make planning more reactive to the parish. And it stated that was why we should have a unitary, because we'll do that. So they're going back on the agreement that they made with the Secretary of State when they set the unitary up. And it really matters if parish and town councils and members of the public don't matter. So we need to see what they said about planning and what it says in the constitution, because these are decisions being led by subgroups of councillors who meet in subgroups, and all these subgroups, I'm not allowed to go in a subgroup because I'm in the wrong political party, but the subgroups meet and discuss all this. But we won't get to that.
Chair, can I? Sorry. The only other thing that as Martin pointed out, is also what the public are going to construe from this. That is not clear, that it's only going to be posted to the neighbours. You know, if this is what we're reading, this is what our residents are going to be reading as well, and that's just not acceptable.
Thank you. Town clerk.
Sorry, Chair, we had a proposal and a proposed amendment. Can we?
Yeah. Could we have a seconder for Robin's? John Harvey. Thank you, Councillor Harvey.
And for Councillor Tri's amendment?
To add on.
Yeah, second.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that?
I'm happy to,
We don't need to make an
we
amendment.
don't need to, we had it on, we simplify matters, but I do think it's the constitution and the makeup of the council. Those two
Vote,
things.
Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, all those in favour?
Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you
I don't
very
think
much.
they'll be able to answer that.
Item 9.2, it's a written question from Councillor Stutchbury.
We've already dealt with that because I
Yeah.
referred to it.
So if we could take that as read, thank you for raising that, Robin.
Thanks again, Robin.
9.3, consultation on new disabled bays, Buckingham East Ward. One is at the western end of Grenville Road, which I'm sure nobody has any problem with, but the contentious one is going to be at the entrance to Whitehead Way off the Morton Road. They're proposing to put a disabled parking bay right at the entrance to the estate within 10 metres of the main road of the A413. I'll pass the photograph around, which was taken yesterday.
Thank you.
My car's parked where the parking bay is going to be.
But what's the highway code on this? What does it say about junctions?
The road narrows at that point, as you can see.
Yeah.
It's opposite Romsey, so there's a junction immediately opposite.
And the zebra crossing on the Morton Road is roughly where the O of road is on the map.
Yeah, so if there should be some vehicle coming the other way, people coming into the estate are going to have to queue to get into the estate.
Yeah.
The other point, of course, is if and when the 130 houses that Castle Milk are approved, that will be a construction route. And as you can see, there's just no room for trucks to get through there.
It's not a good place for it, Chairman.
One suggestion could be that they put a bay in for it, but where my car is, there's a lamppost immediately to its left.
Yeah.
And really, it's bad traffic management. Absolutely.
It is. It's the wrong place.
Thank you. Robin?
I think we need to ask them, was there a site visit?
Yeah.
You're right.
And could we be advised what the site visit advised the officer when making the decision?
Been a safety thing.
Because I think if you've done that off Google Earth, or nobody's been to look at it, and there's also the concerns about shouldn't they look up to their own policies about where they would put a parking safety, and would it fit with their own policies? They must have a policy on where a good and safe place to put. And I've got no doubt this person needs disabled parking. But
Well, there's no indication that it's connected with any individual.
No,
We assume it is.
the limit is,
They put their
that's a
faith-
private matter, but having done these things in the past, they are private matters.
Yeah.
But we do need to ask whether they had a site meet and have they got a policy and does this fit within the policy? And then that will exercise them for a little while, because they'll have to go and find whatever policy they've got. And then they'll have to come back and say, no, we didn't have a site meeting, because they can't, and
But perhaps they did. And then,
well, I don't think you could have had a site meeting and have made that decision. I think that's a Google Earth decision. That is.
thank you, Fran, then Martin.
Somebody has already mentioned the highway code, and it's parked parking opposite a junction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is under the highway codes, it's not allowed, and that road is not particularly wide, though, it is narrowing.
It's deliberately narrowed.
Turning display, if somebody's coming from the 413 to turn into Ronaldsea, they're going to be on the wrong side of the road to do it. So if there's anybody trying to come out of Ronaldsea, or somebody's trying to go into Ronaldsea, then it's just going to be a complete nightmare. It's completely wrong place.
Martin?
I think we've all made the comments about the location of it. And also you, Chairman, have stated that we're not too sure whether it's actually required or whether it's something they want to put in just in case. But it does highlight an interesting issue for disabled people in these newer estates, because there is no room because of the width of the road to put in these sort of parking spaces.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, and they, of course, they can't anticipate who's going to live in properties, but maybe, you know, there needs to be something done for bays every now and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Catherine?
I think if this was not a specific application, just a general, I think they'd have put it in the parking court, which is behind this terrace of houses, because then it would be out of the way. The thing is, because there is no road for this part of Teeswater, and the houses there are only two that actually back onto the parking court with a back fence. So there's only two of them that you can actually walk from the parking area down your garden to your house. Otherwise, you've got to go out into Whitehead Way and all the way round. And that is obviously, if you're disabled, that's something of a problem. But not having a road access to a house is always going to create that sort of problem.
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand why they want to put one there, because there's no restriction on parking around there at all. All I'm guessing is that perhaps somebody has been parking there on a regular basis and someone's complained about this, therefore they've asked for a designated bay to be put in to justify parking there. But I agree, the actual, if we think of a refuse lorry coming out of Ronaldsea, how are they going to turn that corner? It's going to get.
Well, this is the subject of a consultation which closes on 12th of March, so we do need to make a response. So it's our response. So we have no objection to the Grenville Road one, but we do object to this one on all the ones we've laid out tonight, most particularly road safety, highway code, as Fran has said, about parking opposite the junction, also parking within such a short distance of a road junction, of a main road.
Yeah.
Anthony?
Just as a more general thought, when we're looking at developments generally, we pay some attention to suitable housing for people following Class M situations. Would it not be sensible then to automatically consider disabled parking in the vicinity of those houses as a matter of course?
Yeah, it did come up under transport in our neighbourhood plan.
Yes.
Well, the group we had, about, in addition to having electric charging points, about sufficient disabled parking in
Yeah.
estates. So that's something that,
I'm on the
again,
right track.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
something again, we'll continue. Robin, can we
This is just brief that when all these decisions were made, it's no bearing to the decision. We are aware that there is a development been approved and the other site is all brickwork. It's brick
block paving.
block paving, so this will be the only route that any access will go in, because you wouldn't presumably go over brick paving with lorries. So,
That's what Mark said earlier.
yeah, I mean, I missed that, I
I
apologise.
think Catherine made the point well that, you know, that obviously highways don't talk to planning.
No.
Highways obviously have no idea at the moment, there's 130 houses
I know.
planned for through there, which of course at the moment is subject to, it has been called in by the, well, sorry, our MP asked the Secretary of State to call it in November, and it's still pending.
Yeah.
Looking at the website this morning, I think Mr. Gove hasn't yet considered the future of that. No.
Just, sorry, it's probably irrelevant, but you could access that new Castle Milk site by going up, I can't remember the name of the road further towards Maids Morton, the rugby one.
railway.
The access nearer the rugby club.
That's owned by.
No, I don't mean the rugby club. I mean the access to Maids Morton too.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name.
That's Twickenham Drive.
Twickenham Road, that's it. You
Twickenham
can
Road.
get all the way around that way. It
Right.
might be
But
an
the old-
Still
alternative,
going
but
through a housing estate.
But that's really narrow roads, isn't it?
Yeah, it's looking narrow.
The other road is a private road.
Yes.
Thank you. So if, I propose that then. Anthony seconded. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Catherine will know what to write. I'll click it with her. Thank you for that, everybody. And then finally, to discuss and agree any comments on the proposed traffic order to close Nelson Street for 16 days from the 4th to the 19th of April during the daytime. This effectively means that you won't be able to go in or out of the bottom of Tindrick Road for 16 days. It's over the Easter period, and since we put this on the agenda, another 16-day traffic order for Bridge Street has been put in by the same people, Gigaclear. And in between the two Gigaclear bouts, there's a one-day closure of Bridge Street by Anglian Water. So we've got 33 days of major routes being closed in a 5-week period.
So this is crazy.
Martin.
Did I not read that the three broadband providers are going to come under one act? So I'm not saying it's good, but they will be putting in the infrastructure that will only be done once and dig it up once, unlike the rest of us that got it at least twice. I mean, it's been put in by Gigaclear, but this is doing under the hat of all three of them now, isn't it?
We don't know.
Well,
This is only Gigaclear at the moment, so I don't know.
But that's not what the
The application's by Gigaclear.
agreed the application, but that's not what the circular implied, that they were all being amalgamated on the infrastructure side, I think it was.
So they're finally going to work together, which is something that we asked them to do.
But that's not what's before us at the moment. We just.
No, that's why I'm confused, because it is under Gigaclear, and I thought they'd all join forces.
Yeah, well, that's how the applications come from Aylesbury. Fran, you were next.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous, the whole thing. They shut all those parking spaces on West Street for several days, couple of weeks, 10 days, and then they're working for 2. And also, I'm a bit confused about the. I just you'll find all this in order, but should you have any queries, please do not hesitate to contact me by 28th October 2023.
That was noted.
It's been long and gone.
And it's not just the actual closure of the roads as well, it's the extraordinary detours they provided going right around the bypass, and the one to avoid the Bridge Street closure takes you back to the university down Mitre Street. So Sorry, so next was Anthony, then Robin, then John. Anthony?
I'm really responding to what Martin said. I also read that the several companies are all coming under one holding company. But the way that the world works, as I see it, is that they don't do the obvious thing. I bet you they all have existing contracts to do the work, and they will come together on future contracts. But current contracts, they'll merely dig it out 25 times. So there's every chance that common sense will not. And there will be lots and lots of little trenchettes.
And Swiftle, they want 16-day closures. Yeah. Robin?
Everything that we said is absolutely spot on, but I was approached in the market by the traders at the weekend. I said to talk to the market trader and bring it to the office. I don't know if they did. They were concerned about the area of land through the town centre. They got it in their heads that was going to be closed between at some period of time. I said, I don't know about it. I said, ask the market manager to come to the office, because they were suggesting they were going to close it from the town centre up to the old jam.
With respect, Robin, that's not what we're.
No, but what I'm saying is, if that is true, and we've got 30 days of closures in Buckingham, I really think we ought to do a press release and ask whether what we've done as Buckingham to expect 30 days of disruption all at once, and who owns the responsibility for everything being concluded. Well, somebody's had these pieces of paper through their desk, and they process this one, then they process that one, then they process this one quite legally and properly, but they've never sort of started seeing the picture, which you've all done tonight, haven't you? You've all looked at the total picture, and 30 days of closures, and do we get some respite afterwards? I think we ought to do it, because I think it's going to damage the income of the town. It's going to damage the trade of the town. It's going to affect the goodwill in the town, and it's going to cause people to be cross, resentful, do things they wouldn't normally do. So I think we do need to do a press release around this, asking who's making all these decisions and who's in control of managing these decisions, and inform the public that we're not 100% satisfied with this position.
Sorry, Chair. I would say at this point, we are being asked for our opinion on this.
Yeah, this is a consultation.
I'm sure the officer would say, we've tried to do it in Easter holidays. We've limited the closure between 9 and 5. Devil's advocate. This work has to be done, and we've tried to reduce the impact as much as we can. So that's what the officer will reply back to. But constructively, what do you want me to say to them?
The press release isn't the right thing at the moment. We're answering a consultation. The big problem, the reason I raised all this is the economic damage I could see to the town over 33 days. It covers Easter and it covers the coronation weekend. The Nelson Street one particularly, as I say, it means no one will be able to use Tindrick Road for 16 days during the daytime. You can't go up or down it. The people in Nelson Street won't be able to get to their shops. That big block of flats at the entrance. And the other one, the Bridge Street closure, also shows. Bridge Street closure also shows Wells Street being closed. It's not mentioned on the application, but on their plan, they show it as 2 red lines. So we need clarification on that.
I would say again, Chair, we have gone back to them a couple of times and I've got the clarification, because some of that is not clear at all.
I was just going to make a point. Louise, thanks for Louise. She actually contacted me this morning, said they had come back with a revised diversion route on the Bridge Street closure, and all it is, they've cut about 20 yards off where it goes past the university. It's got nothing to do with anything.
We have gone back again.
Yes. So I think we need to go back and say no. We're not accepting this. We cannot have the town closed for 33 days. 2 major entrances to the town. One from Tindrick Road, the other Bridge Street. John.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it seems to me that the Shire Council is not using the powers that they have. to coordinate this better. Because it's not that they have to just simply roll over and agree to whatever utility companies want. They do have some powers to shape what happens, when it happens, how it happens. And I think they're just not doing that. They just simply take one application at a time, rather than saying, we're going to look at how the things join up. And clearly there's a big problem. It's going to create complete gridlock in the town. And when it's East holiday, I don't see how that makes much difference, because people are still going to go around their business. Anyway, the town is sometimes busier during a holiday period than it is during the school. So I think it's ludicrous to suggest that it's not going to impact on the economy. It absolutely will. So I think we do need to get back and say, no, back to the drawing board, think again. And why does the whole road have to be closed? Why can not half the road be closed and then at least have traffic lights? I mean, that's still with delay things, but you then are, at least you can be able to get through. I fail to see putting cables under the ground requires a whole road to be done up. I just don't see it, because they're going to have to make good every night in some way. What's going to happen at night time? Are they going to have traffic lights there? They're going to have traffic lights there at night time. They're going to have to do the day as well.
So I propose then we respond to the both the Bridge Street and Nelson Street closures and just say, no, we oppose it.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable to the town, to the economy, everything.
What about the ambulance?
I can I second it first.
Yeah.
Thank you. John was up first. Fran.
I would just like to suggest that you cite the West Street example of the length of time that they were actually working there, as opposed to when the traffic order was in place, and say that they actually need to pin down the actual time that they're going to be doing that work and not shut the roads for that whole period. Because that's causing just.
Thank you. Could we put it to the vote, please?
Martin, were you referring to the letter that Claire had forwarded us, which was from Swish Fibre?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is Jurassic Fibre, Swish Fibre, Giga Next, Cuckoo, and All Points Fibre.
It's Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So if we could put that to the vote, please, because we are running out of time. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll draft a suitable letter.
Would you forgive me, Jan?
Yeah, thank you so much for attending tonight.
You've done very well, Caroline, to stay on the spot.
And in the corner. Get home.
We'll have to go out riding horses together sometime.
Chair, can I propose that we each go over a few items on the agenda, given the time that we've got?
I'm sorry, John, did you say?
Can I propose that we shelve a few items on the agenda?
Well, we're nearly there. So if we got. Right. Yeah, we've still got 10 minutes before the 10 o'clock deadline. Updates from representatives on outside bodies? None? Buckinghamshire Council meetings. As you can see there, the North Bucks Area Planning Committee was cancelled. There are no strategic site committee ones. Growth Infrastructure and Housing Select Committee, I put a written question to them, which Councillor Peter Strachan replied to. It's on Appendix G. A lot of what they said at the meeting reiterated what we were told at the forum, particularly about enforcement, which they're really pushing now, having a big drive in Buckinghamshire on enforcement, which is very gratifying. To discuss the submission of public questions to the select committees. Is everyone happy we leave that?
Yeah.
Enforcement to report any new breaches. John.
Illuminated sign on the new Baraka Bistro.
On the
new Baraka Bistro, there's
Right.
an illuminated sign.
Yeah, but we've already reported that, haven't we? We've got it.
We're not reported illuminated.
Illuminate, but you
We're
reported.
about up and down.
Right,
Yeah, there's an illuminated sign open and closed on the side, and there's also new signage as well.
we have reported the because it's a listed building, about all the redecoration of the front. Okay, thank you for that, John. Anyone else? No. Rolling list to hold over to the next meeting. annual statistics, annual breakdown of applications, appendix I. Thank you for doing
We
that.
normally do it in March.
Yeah. Item 15, matters to report. Anyone have any matters to report?
I can go to next.
I have one, which is roads, the estate agent sign Bletsoe's on the A421 between the Bletchley roundabout and the medieval bridge, White House Pond. There is a solar sign that's been up since Christmas now.
Oh.
On the verge of the A421. It's a large sign. I did provide Catherine with photographs. Also at the entrance to White House Pond, a big solar sign as well.
Okay.
There's a big for sale sign outside here on the verge, which isn't the normal for sale sign. It's on the land for the properties opposite.
Well, that's to do with an threat and boundary of the property.
In the property, it's just that it's quite a big sign. It's not like your normal sort of sign sale. It's just a big sign on the.
Is it
There's a statutory sign for the state pension. Where is it?
Opposite here, it's on the verge. It's like two poles and a very pretty looking sign. Where normally they're just sort of,
Is it one of the Regent's Gates?
yeah,
it's okay, that's it.
yeah, it's a very big sign. I just don't know whether.
Well, the properties haven't yet been sold, so they're allowed to have a sign.
Yeah, I know they are, but they are restricted in the town centre about buying it. Because and if it is, it can come down.
Lisa?
No, I was just saying, thank you, Catherine.
I know they're very nice and popular.
Well, the chairman has no item of information. The date of the next meeting is Monday, the 27th of March at 7 p.m. And with that,